here from Psychologies magazine. I am here with the wonderful Serena Gordon Hoffman, co-founder of the Hoffman Process. Lovely to have you here today, Serena. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Very nice to be here.
So lovely. I hope everyone is feeling top of the hill this morning. It's Susie Walker here from Psychologies magazine. I'm here with Serena Gordon Hoffman, and today we're going to be talking about changing our lives by diving deep and unhooking ourselves from our pasts. Serena, you are the founder or co-founder of the Hoffman Process, which is a sort of a 7-day intensive therapeutic process. I haven't done this myself, but I know hundreds of people, and they've all said, you need to do it, because it's kind of everything that we talk about at Psychologies. It's visualization, it's therapy, and it's got such a massive following. I mean, you've got celebrities, A-listers, haven't you? Like Orlando Bloom, Katy Perry, but also Oliver James. He said it was a fantastic process. So you've had both the psychological professionals and also A-list celebrities all saying how great this therapy is. So let's just start with asking, well, what is the Hoffman Process?
Yeah, what is it? Thank you, Susie. But also it's important to say that, Tim and I, Tim was given the license by Bob Hoffman for us to put on the Hoffman Process here in the UK 25 years ago. So it is actually a global franchise. So we didn't kind of found the process itself, but we do have the license to operate and to put it on. I mean, I first met Bob Hoffman back in 1995. And at the time, I was quite a sort of cynical English girl who was not really into all this therapy, and it all felt a little bit American and things like that. And then my trigger, a bit like, as you say, Katy Perry and Orlando Bloom have just been talking about this, my trigger for doing the process itself was that I was going to become a mother. And I just felt that it was really important before becoming a mother that I just understood a little bit more about what kind of mother I was going to be. And Tim and I had conversations, are we going to, put the baby in a papoose and keep it with us all the time? Are we going to put the baby down in another, and suddenly we realized that we both had very different childhoods, and our childhoods were suddenly coming into play and impacting on how we were potentially going to parent this vulnerable little thing that was coming out. So I thought, right, bit of self-responsibility here, go off and do the course. And I did, and I came back, and then I had Ben, our oldest, in 1995. And that was the year that Tim and I moved here to the UK and got the process going. And I mean, if you cast your mind back to 1995, I mean, I think there was very little like this around. We'd take people to a place in Devon at the time on a retreat at the time it was 8 days, now it's 7. But even that was, taking people away from their normal world. And that was a world pre-mobile phones and internet and all of that. So imagine even now the commitment to someone to go away is even bigger, to actually just cut yourself off from the outside world. But it's a very holistic, as you said, and absolutely, I agree with you. That thing about Psychologies magazine covers, every month. I mean, how you do it, all the material and the content and the amazing tips and techniques that you cover in that. We have pretty similar ones, but we just put them into a week. And a lot of people say that when they go through the process, it might be that people refer to it as an emotional boot camp or a spiritual detox, or we read stuff on our website that says, they break you down and build you up, or this recent one, the world's toughest therapy retreat. I mean, we're kind of like going, we're not that tough. We're actually really rather sweet and gentle, and we hold the space for people to do their own work. So it's got a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yeah, I suppose it's because it's 7 days intensive, isn't it? And as you say, you're not allowed to take the mobile phones in there. So it's that very much that, for many of us, that would feel, in a way, tough, because just even that is big. But when you're doing a deep dive into, your parenting, or your background, and you've got no distractions. I think that that can be really, really difficult. But one of the quotes I liked was, bringing peace to the world one person at a time. And one of my biggest beliefs is that, the changes that if we can make in the world are going in and creating the self-development, so we become self-aware, that we become the more self-aware, and the more we can work on our own nonsense that goes on from our childhood and all of these things that triggers us, and the more peace there will be in the world. Because I can't say that American president's name, but if someone like that could do the Hoffman process or have some therapy, then it would be better.
Yeah,
maybe.
I think you're absolutely right, and that's that thing about our tagline is, when you're serious about change, it really is that people have to identify what is it in their lives, what is it in the inner bit where maybe you do feel disconnected or lonely or isolated, that a lot of our behaviors are triggered by a core belief that maybe we're unlovable or we were unwanted or something like that. And in the process, the various different techniques that we take people through in what we call the cycle of transformation is to actually restore ourselves back, to learn to parent our little child inside. So it's to acknowledge that that little child came out, sweet, loving, wanted connection, wanted warmth, wanted just to be held. And our parents can't always do that. I've been a mum, of 2 boys. So I know there are times where I had to actually go, I've got to go to work, but sometimes that can leave people feeling like, oh, what have I done wrong? Why is she not looking after me? Why isn't she with me? So, until we heal that wound within us ourselves, it is hard to create peace. And the peace in ourselves can then radiate out to others. So, but it's all about the work that we have to do here, basically in our hearts, so that we can kind of go out and be more consciously aware human beings, people who are responding to stuff rather than reacting in an old behavior pattern that takes you right back to those childhood wounds. So a lot of our job is about working with people as to what was your childhood. What were the traumas in childhood? What were the wounds? What are the things that you want to heal? And how can we best support you? And sometimes we have to say to people, your best support is going to be therapy. I love individual therapy, and encouraging people to take some of their very specific individual issues into therapy, and then having done the therapy, then to come back and do the process. Is brilliant. Sometimes it might mean that people need to go into recovery or into rehab. So we're a bit of a diagnostic to start with before people come on the course. That's our kind of sense of responsibility.
Okay, so that's interesting. So I didn't know that. So before people come on, you do talk to people before they come, and you say, actually, you need to work on this, this, and this before you can come. Yeah. The process starts basically the moment people sort of pick up the phone. Our enrollment team, we're small right now. There are literally 3 of us. But we'll speak to everybody and just, work out, first of all, is it the right course for you? And that's where thanks to lockdown, we were mentioning before, the silver lining is we created this online 2-day course, our Hoffman Essentials, because actually if we feel that people may not be ready for the Hoffman process itself, the full immersive 7 days away from home, quite a lot of money, quite a bit of commitment, especially in these COVID times, then the Essentials is a really good way for them to dip their toe in. And for us actually to check how resilient somebody is. That's the main thing is someone, Bob Hoffman said that the process is basically available for anyone who's a normal neurotic, but we have to do our sort of due diligence first to make sure, because there are only 18 people on any course with 3 facilitators. We have to make sure that those 18 are going to get the best out of it. So you're right. A lot of it is about is the timing right for you? Yeah. So I love this. I think for many therapists, what I'm seeing right across the board, all the people I'm talking to for psychologies, is that this idea of that we've kind of gone online, and the kind of the great thing, is that we're going to get access to these tools, which is amazing. So it's great to hear that you've got, one of the reasons I actually haven't been on Hoffman is because, I've been a single mum, and, to take 8 days away from my boy, I just couldn't, there's no way I could do that that perhaps, but it just made me feel too uncomfortable to be able to do that. But I love the idea that you've got like a weekend, like Zoom call, which is really great. But are there any tools for people listening to this to give them an intro into the kind of the deep dive that you'll do on Hoffman? What are some techniques that you could share with us today? And I know that's a big ask, because
not at all. I mean,
deep,
sometimes, you know what? Sometimes the simplest ones are the most effective. And I know, for instance, Bob Hoffman came up with this process back in the mid-60s, when there was an awful lot of other therapies coming out of California. So a lot of what we teach is out there in the ether. We just do it with our little flavor. The simplest one, I'd say, is what we call a quadrinity check-in. And we have 4 aspects. Quadrinity is just a posh word for saying 4. So our intellect, and any of us who kind of like sometimes come from our intellectual point of view, we rationalize, we judge, we criticize, very useful if you're doing your taxes or having to get somewhere, you need your intellect. But sometimes people might say, I'm too in my head, or I'm being driven by my intellect and it's driving me nuts. The chatter, the sleepless nights, the waking up at 4 a.m. So that's the intellectual part of us. Then we have our emotional part of us, which some might refer to as the emotional child. So that if you have a photo of yourself as a kid, like maybe 6 years old, and you kind of tap in and look into the eyes of that 6-year-old and see that sweetness, and maybe the pain, and maybe the not being taken seriously, or being too quiet, or the sense of responsibility. And that little 6-year-old child has to kind of relate to the intellect. And sometimes there's a challenge, there's a conflict between the two. The adult intellect may be telling the child off, you don't need another biscuit. You don't need to go, come on, get out of bed. We've got work to do. And the body, the third aspect of this quadrinity, is the body that ends up being the battleground. So, the body is going, oh, for God's sake, guys, can you just shut up? Because I'm getting yada, 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 yeah. And it's like, shut up. Please, can we have some peace? And that's where the body, those wonderful books, about trauma being held in the body, and the body can really suffer if the intellect and the emotional self are at conflict with each other. So to create some sort of truce, to do a kind of role play where you get your child to speak out and go, do you know what? I'm fed up with all of this. I want to cuddle. I want this. I just want to go out. I want to eat Jaffa cakes. I just stop telling me what I can and cannot do. And just let it then say what it needs. What I need now is to sit and watch Netflix. What I need now is to just go out for a walk, and just allow the adult intellect just to listen and just make a truce. And then the intellect will say, well, maybe we can negotiate and you can sit and watch Netflix if we do the tax return first. Do you know what I mean? So it's like just trying to compromise, and then coming to a place of peace. The last aspect is the spiritual self, that we call the spiritual self, which is just that beautiful, you probably all have a word for it. I'd say your diamond essence, your instinct, it's inside you. It's that kind of, you on a really good hair day, that sort of, your best self, your inner self. So when those 4 aspects, you check in with each part each morning, and we have like a little meditation that we do. It's only 5 minutes, but just checking with each part. How am I doing? Intellect, what do you need today? What have you got on? You've got that big meeting. How can we support you? Emotional child, what do you need? Body, what do you need? Sleep, a bath. And spiritual self, the spiritual self will be there guiding you. So I'd say, quite a long answer to your question, but as a kind of top tip, that would be my one for just being able to come out into the world from an integrated, grounded, connected place of being.
I love that, because as you say, it's very holistic, and the idea that we have those conversations in our heads. We talk a lot in psychologies about your inner coach, which will be the wise self, and then also the inner critic, which I think sometimes the intellect, for many of us, can be that very punishing voice. But it can just be, you need to get from A to B. It's just logical. Ding, 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 ding. But as you say, for many of us, the trigger is when that emotional child inside it goes, I can't do this. I just, as you say, I need a cuddle, I need a Jaffa cake.
Yeah.
I think your inner child and my inner child want the same thing, a Jaffa cake.
Yeah. And it just needs to be seen and heard. It's like the greatest sort of bit of mediation or something. It's actually just being totally fair and saying, can we hear from all sides? Can we hear the struggles? Can we also hear what you need? And particularly, I think, introducing the body into that group of 4 is so important, because quite often we might deal with our emotional side or our intellectual side, but we actually forget, as I say, this battleground of our bodies. And, and the other thing that I love is that old kind of analogy or whatever it is of you've got to resource yourself. So it's a bit like if you're kind of on an aeroplane and they drop the oxygen masks from above, and you have to put it on yourself first before helping others. And I remember as a mum, I was always like, well, why would I do that? Of course I'd put it on my kids first. And then people would say, no, because your kids aren't going to live unless you are alive and functioning. So I think that would be another one. Certainly it's helped me through some pretty rocky, challenging times, is to always make sure that I'm resourcing myself, because if I deplete and my energy depletes, it impacts my kids, it impacts my relationships, it impacts my colleagues at work, it impacts the business. And I, like you, we're in the business of giving people opportunities to make their lives better. So, I've really got to practice what I preach, but but it's hard.
Yeah, I know. I mean, for you, you're someone who you've been a working mother. You've co-founded it over here. The Hoffman Process over there. I mean, how have you resourced yourself? What are the tools that you found as a working mother, as a business owner? Because many of us are in this kind of place at the moment where we're having to resource ourselves more than ever before, because we're working from home. And just before this interview, my tech all exploded. So, trying to, just to try, when we say resources, it's from the basics of trying to get your tech working, to your inner resources to think, I can do this. I can, step by step, I can do this. So for you, what are the most useful tools that you have used to get you to where you are today?
I've probably used a variety, to be honest, but I think the in the past, with as a mum like you to 2 small kids, I think I just used alarm clocks and cups of coffee. Now my favorite thing is just to get up and walk in the morning. If I'm lucky enough to have a garden, so actually just to walk barefoot and to feel the ground, to do one of those little meditation-y things. I used to think, oh God, meditation, I haven't got time to sit down cross-legged doing this or whatever. And then I realized, thanks to mindfulness, that meditation can be just simply walking and observing and just looking at the detail, looking at the rain. I love that. So connecting to nature and consciously walking, as I breathe out all the shitty stuff, and as I breathe in restoratively. Simple stuff. And then I actually just really like dancing. So I have Spotify playlists, and I have different ones for different things. And my God, my mood can just change like that. I'm feeling challenged sometimes by an employment thing or a work related thing or a stress about closing down because of COVID and looking after our clients. I literally just have to step away from the computer, put on some music and dance.
Yeah. Well, again, what you're suggesting is one, your wiser self is being accessed by, the meditation. Your body is being accessed by the dancing. The inner child is, I think to be embodied, it's to kind of, you get in touch with that part of yourself, don't you? The joy, all of those things. And what was the 4th one?
Well, for us, it's our spiritual self. So I suppose where I get in touch with my spiritual self is, just like it's been raining all morning, the sun's come out. It's just like going, thank you. I feel connected. I feel, you know, shit happens. What's the worst that could happen? And how can I get myself through it? So it's just all about staying present, gratitude and appreciation, which I know you do a lot of as well, and I cannot underestimate that as, again, a really simple tool of gratitude. So, I mean, I know, again, probably what you're hearing is nothing new. It's a bit like we're a sandwich. We just put it in a different box, you know.
But what you focus on expands, and I think for me, it's being able to fill our tanks full of all of these resources, whether you're reading psychologies, you do the deep inner work with the Hoffman process, whether you're doing visualizations. It's just making a commitment, I think, for all of us. You know, these are really tough times for all of us. And, you know, especially if you're working in the NHS and you're literally on the front line, it's really difficult. And for the rest of us, the uncertainty, all of those things. But what I always say is that there is hope and there is help, and, you know, you can reach out and you can find ways to overcome all of these things. And there is methodologies that can help. You know, there's lots of ways, but we haven't had anyone from the Hoffman process before. So I'm really pleased you've come to talk to us today, Serena. Thank you so much for your. I love the idea of the 4 things. I'm going to try that. Yeah, I'm going to try that. I'll report back.
Well, we'll put one of our meditations on our website. So if people want to come, we'll make that available so that people can actually listen to it. Because if it does give you that opportunity to actually face the day, feeling more connected, more resourced, and also, you know, don't go it alone. Reach out, you know, and seek help and things like that. So yeah, no, it's been really lovely being on. Thanks. So nice to meet you.
And Serena, there's all of your links below. So if anyone's watching this and wants more support, we've just heard there's a free meditation going to be on. Thank you, Serena. I'm going to download it as well. And there's lots of links to find more about the Hoffman and what's available. But Serena, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Susie. Lots of love to you too. Bye.
Bye. Bye.